Well, thanks for coming in to talk to us about mental health today, Julie. I really appreciate it. I understand that you've had your own experiences with anxiety recently. Could you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, of course I can, Una. Lovely to meet you today. So I've recently come back to work after having an episode of anxiety, which actually took me off guard. For years, I'd always thought I'd got depression, um, but actually, this recent bout of anxiety, I've been properly diagnosed now as having post-traumatic stress disorder. And I've been really lucky because I've been able to access some fantastic treatment on the NHS. And that's resulted in me actually getting back into recovery within 4 months. So I'm really lucky that I was diagnosed correctly and had the right support from the NHS. But more importantly, I had fantastic support from my manager and my colleagues here at ACAS.
That's fantastic. And how did they support you? I understand, having gone through my own experiences with anxiety myself. It's not an easy condition to manage, and it really does require a lot of openness and support. So, how did your manager support you going through your treatment and your undergoing, I guess, issues with anxiety? As we all know, it doesn't really go away like a magic spell or anything. It's something that requires constant practice and treatment. So, how did your manager help you there?
So I think the first thing was I was really honest with my manager. And that was quite difficult because I had to talk about some really personal things that related to my post-traumatic stress. But she was fantastic. She listened, she didn't judge me. And the first thing that she did was understand that I needed to take some time out from work. So put in all those mechanisms to make sure that I wasn't worried about all those appointments and that was all, my colleagues were really good and took on some of that work for me, and also recognising that things can wait till you get back. It's not the end of the world. Things, life goes on. The other thing that my manager was really good at was talking to me about what adjustments I needed to have. So when I returned back to work, because I knew I needed to have cognitive behavioural therapy, I had some short-term workplace adjustments to enable me to take time out to go and have that treatment without having to do that in my own time. Because again, my manager understood that the quicker I got treatment, the quicker I could be back to Julie and be performing at my best. So that really helped with my recovery because I wasn't having to worry. It also meant that I'd got my own time to recover, because obviously if anyone's gone through CBT or cognitive behavioural therapy, as the big name is, there's a lot of homework. So I was able to do that homework in my own time in an evening. The other adjustments was taking some more complicated work, freeing me up from that. And that was on mutual agreement. I'd said, this kind of stuff actually is difficult for me at the minute. So giving me that space, recognising that I wasn't performing to my full potential. And then more longer term, actually adjusting my work pattern now. So I have a more compressed working week, because then that frees up for more time for me to actually, because I've got a very busy schedule, that actually I've got time to relax and have some me time and, work-life balance. So, but the key thing was I was able to have an open and honest conversation with my manager about what I needed, and also she felt that she was able to ask me questions to find out what support I needed.
That's excellent. It's really critical, isn't it? Just going through my own experience with anxiety, I remember when I was just starting out in my own career, I found, because I was a new graduate, I didn't feel like I had much experience, and I just kind of didn't feel as valuable as some of the employees there who had more experience or had just been there longer than myself. What kind of advice would you give to employees who perhaps maybe don't feel so comfortable talking about a mental health issue with their employer or their manager?
I think the first thing is it can be difficult sometimes, especially if you've not got that relationship with your manager. I mean, I got a brand new manager. She'd only been in post for 2 months. Then all of a sudden, I landed all of this on her. But you know, I think because over the years I've learned to be open and talk about it, but I recognise that people can't always do that. So sometimes it might be, you may feel safer first of all talking to a colleague, and sharing and getting some support from them, and then going to your line manager. Or you might have another manager within that management structure who you feel more comfortable. So for example, your mental health may be related to your gender or your ethnicity or something like that. So you may feel more comfortable speaking to a manager who you can relate to, and then liaise with your line manager. But I think even though it may seem scary, just remember your manager is a person as well. You may be surprised to find that they may be dealing with their own mental health issues. We all have mental health, be it good or bad. So actually most people will understand that they're there to help, and managers, unless you tell them what you need, they're not, you know, clairvoyants. They can't foresee what you need. So wherever you can, speak to your manager. If you feel you can't, then speak to a colleague who then may be able to come and support you. Or you might want to talk to someone in HR, or if you're in a trade union, you may feel comfortable talking to a trade union representative, or you may have mental health first aiders, someone like that. So there's always those support mechanisms. If you don't feel comfortable to first talk to your line manager, talking to all those variety of support that you've got in your organisation. Your organisation may also have an employee assistance programme, and I know for me, when I first became unwell, that was my first port of call. After speaking to my line manager, I picked the phone up, I spoke to our employee assistance programme, and I was really lucky. Within an hour I got to speak to a professional who was able to just help me in that area of crisis at that time.
That's fantastic and very, very great advice. I often wish I'd kind of known about this a lot sooner myself. And so lastly, for employers, how can they go about creating an environment where people feel comfortable to talk about mental health, and perhaps give support and maybe training to managers so they can be that gateway?
So I think training is really important. You know, we don't get a talk when we become managers, we don't always get this toolkit. So going on training is really good. That's one of the reasons why ACAS has designed the different modules, and the line manager module is part of that. So making sure you train your managers up. But the other thing, which I think works really well, is as managers, we need to be authentic. That's why I talk about my own mental health. I manage people, but I think if managers can be more authentic and actually talk about how they feel about things, people are more likely to come and speak to you, because they don't see you as this robot or this person who's so detached from reality. They see you as a real person. Also, don't be frightened to ask for help. You're not supposed to be a medical physician or anything like that. So, you know, you may have that conversation, a one-to-one with a member of staff, and they may disclose something quite personal, or actually you really don't know what that condition is. So again, get that support either from your HR function, occupational health, etc., or from, you know, your EAP. Or actually, if it's a certain condition, there's loads of organisations out there that specialise. You know, so Mind, for example, have fantastic information and support for line managers. So you're not supposed to know everything. You're not supposed to know all the answers. Just listen to that member of staff and tell them if you don't know the answers, you'll go away and find out more information. But listening, giving that person a clear indication that you're taking what they're saying seriously. And if you can't answer the question, you'll get back to them, and when you'll get back to them by. But don't dismiss them, you know. And the last thing you should ever say is, oh, don't worry, it'll get better, because actually when you're going through crisis, that's the last thing you want to hear.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Julie. It's been great talking to you, and sharing such a candid response. Thank you so much today.
Thanks, Oona.